Solitude can be hard, really hard, and nowadays it's probably even harder. We do everything to avoid being alone and to avoid feeling what's inside of us. We do everything to avoid feeling loneliness because for many, loneliness is the worst thing one can feel. Musashi spent almost his entire life as a vagabond, a life full of solitude. Shortly before his death, he wrote Dakkodo, The Way to Go Forth Alone. Musashi managed to live a life that we all seek, a life full of meaning and fulfillment, despite the loneliness. These are all the Dakkodo principles that will help you walk the path of solitude. 1. Accept everything just the way it is. Do you ever get angry? You can get angry because someone betrayed you, maybe because your favorite team didn't win the game, or because your wallet was stolen. Anger in this context is caused by our unrealistic expectations. You created the expectation that you couldn't be betrayed, that you couldn't lose your wallet, and that your team should have won. All of these are unrealistic expectations because none of what you expected happened. Accepting everything just the way it is means taking the next step and understanding that what happened cannot be changed. If what happened cannot be changed, then by accepting the situation, the pain that comes from anger, frustration, and a sense of injustice disappears. 2. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Instead of focusing only on what makes us feel good at the moment, we should seek a deeper meaning. Not seeking pleasure for its own sake means looking beyond immediate gratifications and thinking about the consequences of our actions. I am sure you have already experienced things in your life that bring immediate pleasure, but in the long run, create much more harm than good. Going out every night and getting drunk may make you forget your problems for a few hours, but the next day, the problems are still there. Not to mention all the damage caused directly by alcohol, like saying a word too many to a friend or behaving irresponsibly while driving. 3. Do not, under any circumstances, depend on a partial feeling. All emotions have one common characteristic. They are temporary. They do not last forever. Would you ever kill someone because they made you angry? Maybe they insulted your mother in front of everyone. The reasonable and rational answer is no. But now the question arises, are there people who do this? People who let anger control their actions? The answer is obviously yes. Where are these people? Still in prison. Some are in physical prison, but all are in emotional prison. Emotions should be tools that we use, not tools that use us. 4. Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. You are what you are, nothing more and nothing less. You are a mortal being who makes mistakes, who is light years away from being perfect. You are not your achievements, and you are not your possessions. You are simply a human being, worth neither more nor less than any other human being. While some may find these words demotivating, others will perceive them as a bolt from the blue that shatters their chains. Nowadays, appearance and reputation are very important, and often people find themselves acting in their lives rather than living them. They try to maintain a false image of themselves, feeling deep down like imposters. But if you take yourself lightly and remember that you are merely a human being, you will no longer have to act a part. You can finally be yourself. However, remember that when it comes to understanding the world around you, do not be superficial. Strive to fully understand the mechanisms and dynamics of the world you live in. Take yourself lightly, but view the world deeply. 5. Be detached from desire lifelong. Desire is the recipe for creating emotional pain. We desire something when we want something we don't yet possess, and we usually believe that once we obtain our desire, we will be happy. But what happens every time we fulfill a desire? Nothing different. The happiness lasts for a few moments and is soon replaced by the next desire. Detaching from desire doesn't necessarily mean having no ambitions. It means detaching from the outcome, which we often do not have complete control over. Do you manage to get what you desire? Fantastic. Don't manage to get it? Equally fantastic. 6. Do not regret what you have done. Regret lies in the past. Unfortunately, we cannot go back in time and change our actions, especially those we consider mistakes. Living in regret means living in a world that no longer exists, living and suffering today for something you did yesterday. Regret exists only in a world where you have the power to experience one thing alone: suffering. The present, on the other hand, is the only moment in which you have the power to do something concrete, such as make up for your mistakes. 7. Never be jealous. Jealousy is an emotion that everyone has experienced at least once in their life, but it is an emotion we cannot communicate. Why is it almost impossible to hear someone say, "I am jealous"? Because it means admitting to the world that we are inferior. However, this sense of inferiority is always unrealistic. In this context, we use the word jealousy as a synonym for envy. To be envious of someone, we must necessarily compare ourselves to that person and conclude that they have something we do not have or are something we want to be. If you find yourself in these dynamics, remember principle number 4, think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. You are a mortal being who makes mistakes, and just as you are, so are all the people you envy. The only difference between you and them is that you know both the good and the bad of your life, but you only see or focus on the good in theirs. 8. Never let yourself be saddened by a separation. Separation is part of life. You can only feel pain from separation if your expectations are unrealistic. You can feel pain from separation only if you have not accepted that life is change. Sooner or later, you will separate from everything and everyone, more or less quickly. Accepting this means being able to appreciate both the moments spent together and the moment of separation. 9. Resentment and complaint are appropriate neither for oneself nor others. A quote that struck me deeply by Nelson Mandela is the following: "Hate is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies." Hate and resentment are the same thing. The only difference lies in intensity. Hate has a higher intensity than resentment. So Mandela's quote about resentment could be, "Resentment is a slightly less potent poison that we decide to drink, hoping our enemy will die." Regarding complaints, I have slightly modified a famous quote by Irma Bombeck. Complaints are like a rocking chair. They give you something to do, but they don't get you anywhere. 10. Do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. Love is a fantastic feeling. However, it becomes a problem when it blinds us to when it is the only thing we use to move forward in our lives. How many stories have we heard of relationships where there is domestic violence, and despite this violence, love blinded the victims? Many people remain trapped in a cycle of abuse because their love for their partner clouds their judgment. In these cases, love transforms into a force that justifies violent behavior, preventing the victim from seeing the situation for what it truly is. Emotions are relevant and important, but it is crucial that they do not take over our lives. 11. In all things have no preferences. The risk of having preferences is that they reduce the freedom to experience new things. The more preferences you have, the less flexible you will be in your decisions. On the contrary, having fewer preferences will increase the options you can choose from. Imagine yourself as a warrior in the period when Musashi lived. Having preferences in the manner and style of combat could be fatal. It could be fatal because if your opponent understood your combat preferences, they could begin to predict your moves, leading to your death. 12. Be indifferent to where you live. This principle teaches us not to become too attached to a specific place. We should be able to adapt to any environment and find serenity regardless of where we are. Being indifferent to where you live doesn't mean not appreciating your surroundings, but rather letting the environment determine your state of mind. Developing the ability to adapt to different environments makes you more resilient and flexible. Living with this mindset helps you better manage changes and enjoy every experience life offers, no matter the place. 13. Do not pursue the taste of good food. This advice is more useful than ever in this modern era. Today, more people die from overeating than from starvation, a dynamic completely opposite to previous millennia. It has been shown that the more food tastes good, the more we tend to eat. Nowadays, food companies know how to masterfully dose sugars and fats to get people addicted. Chasing the taste of food means losing control over ourselves. 14. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. Keep only possessions that are useful to you, which means letting go of everything you no longer use or need. Having more things means having more complexity in your life. Fewer things equals less complexity. Life itself can be incredibly complex, so try to be the one who doesn't make it overly complicated. Not holding on to possessions you no longer need means freeing up physical and mental space. By letting go of superfluous items, we open ourselves up to new opportunities and experiences, reducing stress and confusion. Be willing to make room for what is truly important and meaningful in your life. 15. Do not act following customary beliefs. This principle invites us not to conform to society's beliefs and habits without careful consideration. It means being critical of traditions and conventions, making choices based on our personal understanding and evaluation. U.S. Navy Admiral Grace Hopper sums up this principle excellently. The most dangerous phrase is, "We've always done it this way." 16. Do not collect weapons or practice with weapons beyond what is useful. A functional life and decisions oriented toward what is truly useful are recurring themes in Musashi's writings. Once again, he emphasizes that balance is essential. Weapons have a precise purpose, just like food and sleep. Too much of each can only lead to harmful imbalances, weakening, and inefficiency. Weapons are no exception. Keep in mind that during Miyamoto's time, weapons were essential for personal defense and protection, and were used in many cases daily. However, excessive reliance on weapons can turn into a weakness, making the individual vulnerable to their own insecurity. 17. Do not fear death. There are two types of people: those who die but have never accepted their mortality, and those who die having accepted their mortality. Fear of dying can sometimes help us survive longer, but it can prevent us from living fully. Imagine an elderly person facing a terminal illness. If this person is obsessed with the fear of death, they might spend their days brooding over the inevitability of their fate, thus losing the opportunity to enjoy precious moments with loved ones. Conversely, if they accept their condition and face death with serenity, they can focus on what truly matters, spending their time in a meaningful and gratifying way. 18. Do not seek to possess either goods or fiefs for your old age. This principle urges us to avoid being too attached to material goods and social status. In the final phase of your life, dedicating time and energy to increasing your wealth is very sad. As you approach the end, the truly relevant things gain more weight, while the less relevant things lose their significance. Money is necessary for living, but at a certain point, more money does not equate to more joy. The less time you have to live, the more you want to use that time meaningfully. For Musashi, using this time to increase wealth is not the right choice. 19. Respect Buddha and the gods without counting on their help. Despite the profound respect Musashi had for Buddha and the gods, it was crucial for him that responsibility and his destiny were in his hands and no one else's, including the gods. Even though we may find comfort and inspiration in our faith, ultimately it is up to us to face life's challenges with courage and determination. 20. You may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor. Preserving one's honor means maintaining dignity and moral integrity even in the most difficult situations. While we may be forced to sacrifice our physical well-being, our honor remains intact, allowing us to leave a legacy of courage and integrity for future generations. Never set aside your honor for fear of losing your life. Losing honor is far worse than losing your life. This concept was deeply rooted in the culture and philosophy of Japanese warriors of the time, influencing their actions and decisions in every situation. 21. Never stray from the way. Never stray from the way means remaining faithful to our principles, goals, and values, regardless of the difficulties or temptations we encounter. This constant and disciplined commitment helps us realize our full potential and live a life that is meaningful and consistent with our ideals.